Chapter 12. Mysteries of the Magi. Within a week after my initiation, I was fully recovered and strong again, and in myself there was a strange and consistent joy. This joy was so intense that at times I felt that I could not breathe deep enough to engulf all the joy of the world. It was during this time that there was brought to me a victim of the deadly king cobra. He was already beginning to stiffen, and about him was that bluish-white pallor that announces quick death. The weeping procession stopped in the shade of a bodhi not far away, and his wife came weeping and wailing to me. In my state of radiance and bliss, I felt annoyed at such disturbance. Do these foolish people not know that the bite of the king cobra is sure death? Do they never learn? Why will they bother me with the impossible? But in the cycle of an instant, I was chagrined with the wild horses of passion that tugged at my inner thoughts. I arose and went toward the bodhi at her request and her urging. I was happy to feel that the sense of supreme joy had not been shaken out of my consciousness by the anguished and futile wailing, or the intense passions of my inner self, or of these simple folk. As I looked down upon the Hindu, I saw that he had been a young man of the merchant class, prosperous and handsome, with everything in the world to live for. His wife was beautiful, young, and from the 5 children hovering in tears around her, I gathered she was also fruitful and dutiful. But in some strange way, I felt no pity for either the dead or the living. At that moment, it seemed to me death was the greatest joy, death was the sweetest passion, death was the perfection of life, the continuum of the state of beauty of soul. Death was but the moment of life extended beyond the human senses into a boundless eternity of perfect bliss. That one was dead was of no consequence. He would in a while come again to the learning and joys of life. What matter then that he ceased this life a whisper of time earlier than was possible? Would he not come again even more quickly, recompensed by the immutable law with time which these events had taken from him? Thinking this, I was somewhat surprised to see the form of the young man sitting upon the limbs of the bodhi, as well as lying cold and stiff at the gnarled roots. Murthy was such a wonderful man, the wife cried. Oh, why should he have to die? No man dies until he wills it, I said, and was surprised at my own words. I was more surprised at the look of consternation and guilt which came upon the sensitive face of Murthy in the bodhi. Thus did I know that my tongue had been guided. I sent all the crowd away a distance of 200 paces, that I might speak with the spirit of the dead. How simple was his story. He was a man of intense passion, wanting his woman every day. She was tired and repulsed him, and he turned to a younger woman, more willing if not more beautiful. He had felt that he had done great wrong. Seeking to punish himself, he had grown careless and did not watch his path and had been bitten by the deadly cobra. Why did he think he had sinned? Because he had been taught so. Why did he not want to live? Because he owed his duty to his wife and his love to the younger woman. In my moment of utter joy, I could see nothing wrong with this and told him so. Then I beckoned the family and friends to return. I stood over the prostrate form of the man Murthy and took him by the hand. I forgive you of all your sins. Forgive yourself and rise up and walk and continue to do as you have done while living. The spirit of Murthy trembled in the limbs of the bodhi, then came down to fall backward into the flesh body. Murthy on the ground shuddered as the flesh took home the spirit, groaned, and began to rise. Consciousness came as he gained his feet, and he looked from soft brown eyes at me. For a moment his spirit spoke to my spirit by means of sight, then the veil of forgetfulness came before his eyes. I knew that Murthy would live yet a while, but he would be caught and ground to death between the demands of his flesh and the teachings of those who never understood or knew such demands. Even this was of great indifference. In my state of bliss, death and life were one. Morality of man was of no lasting consequence. Only the eternal law of God was important, and it had nothing to do with the petty foibles and worries of man. Soon I lost the feeling of bliss, and though I tried to heal other cases of snakebite, I failed. Sometimes men would live, but I never felt that I had done anything to cause them to live. For I was in, and concerned with, the 100. Passions and the cares of the too solid flesh. Sometimes I even worried that I had advised Murthy to live happily in defiance of the mores of the society in which he was raised, and the teachings of the priests of his religion, and the family to which he owed his allegiance. Gradually I became more and more convinced, however, that the laws of God had nothing to do with the morals of man. Morality and goodness were akin, but morality and godliness were not akin in the same manner. For morality had to do with the needs of man, and godliness had to do with a higher, more supernal power and force. In a dull and muddling way, I was certain that I was on the path of a great truth. But my mind was not ready to receive it, or my training was not enough to make it clear and serviceable. Slowly I lost hold of this concept and became again enmeshed in the cares and the toils of the flesh, mine, or others. Upon the 15th day I was visited by the Hierophants and agreed to go throughout Hindusland in the yellow robe of the mendicant, wearing as my only ornament the jewel of the Master of the East. I was to teach the concepts of Brahmanism and live the life of a beggar monk. In this manner I made my way across to the Ganges and followed down through that beautiful country. At first I taught the concepts of Brahmanism, but in a little while I began to see how the concept of karma and of the 4 castes was used to make a few incredibly rich, but most people incredibly poor, even untouchable. I saw the stupidity of carrying the idea of non-harm to the point that one lets serpents harm oneself. I began to see that the idea of blissful meditation was a way to pleasure of the self as surely as pathway to the contact with the Supreme. Slowly I began to include some words on these ideas in my daily talks before the people who came to hear me. Soon I was visited by a group of Brahmins, wrathful and demanding. They insisted that I must stop teaching the ignorant people to rebel against those things which were the way of the land. They argued that it was custom, and without custom the people would become confused and violent, and in violence the people would come to great harm. What you mean is that if the people become wise, they will throw off the yoke of you who wish to keep the status quo for your own ease and enrichment. Is this not so? Perhaps we gain a little, one wily Brahmin said, but we pass it on to the glory of God and to the comfort of our fellow priests. You benefit by this. Simple generosity did benefit. I was well tended in the monasteries throughout the land and given all needed creature comforts. But it seemed to me that my personal comforts were of small importance to the creature comforts, manly dignity, and human rights of millions of Hindus. I prayed for several days upon the matter, then spoke out specifically against such beliefs. Within a week, those common folk who came daily to hear me talk had grown from about 100 to well over 2,000. Word spread, and men came from every surrounding village to hear my message, simple as it was. I told them, "No man can serve 2 masters. Is not your body the temple of the Supreme? Should it not be kept in cleanliness, in health, in good condition, well fed? Shall you then let this temple of the Supreme be the servant of custom? Will you say that your own divine self should not eat the sweet herbs which are cropped by the cattle you drive not out of your garden? Should not your pathway be cleared of the deadly serpent you will not harm? Is the snake more divine than you yourself? Shall there be ranks of divinity? If one of you is divine, are not all of you divine? How can one divinity be untouchable to another divinity? Can you answer me that?" It is true, the meek shall inherit the earth, but the stupid shall perish. For the meek are of the earth, and understand it, and live from it, and love it. But the stupid defy not those who would defile their sacred temples, and drive not out those noxious and harmful creatures that would kill the body. Within 3 weeks, I was talking, daily to 3,000, then to 5. A giant meeting was being readied for the celebration of my 20th birthday, for the common men had come to love my words and had sent my fame before me upon my path. But daily the Brahmins became more threatening. First I found no lodging in the monasteries, then no friends at the wayside. So I turned to staying in the homes of those who invited me, no matter what the caste. Thus it was that I was arraigned before the angry hierophants and accused of these great crimes. In defiance of God, he has taught that all men are equal. In defiance of custom, he has taught that animals are not sacred. In defiance of reason, he has taught that untouchables are as divine as Brahmins. In defiance of truth, he has taught that karma is not ever enduring. In defiance of love, he has taught that Brahmins are not pure and perfect. In defiance of training, he has taught that all men have a right to life, liberty from caste, and such happiness as the flesh may know. In defiance of teaching, he has taught that a guru is not essential to help man reach to the supreme. In defiance of the Vedas, he has taught that there is not one single law which is sacred and divine. In defiance of the law of the land, he has taught resistance to authority and breaking of castes. In defiance of justice, he has taught the taking of food from the lands of Brahmins to save lives of common people at times of famine. When the howling priests had quieted after the reading of this bill of charges, a hierophant rose and said, "Now let us mete out his punishment." "Wait," I cried. "You have read the charges, but you have not proved them. Bring witnesses to support your preposterous position." "See," cried an angry voice, "he rebels against even the law of the priests. It is known that when we have spoken a thing, it is true, and no man may speak against it and live." A surge of fury filled me with great power, but I stood quietly while they made a sham of justice and a triple sham of humanity. One hierophant said, "We will take from him the master's jewel, but in pity we will not turn him over to the law of the king to be tortured and slowly killed. Mercifully we will stone him here and now, and great reward shall come to him who throws the killing stone." But even as hands were raised to hurl the stones, there arose 3 of the hierophants, each dressed in the robe and the cap of the Magi. One advanced before me, his arms held high, asking for silence and attention. When the maddened priests had quieted, he said, "I am Melchior, here is Caspar and also Balthazar, and we are come out of Persia to see this man. If what you accuse him of is true, your wrath still cannot be justified. If you stone him, do you not break your own law? Do you not bring upon each of you the bad karma? I plead not for him, I plead for your eternal souls. Let him go free into the arms of the secular law." Caspar and Balthazar had moved so that they stood as points of a triangle opposite Melchior. They made an imposing and commanding sight, but they made no impression upon the priests. In spite of the plea, the Hindus were determined to kill me of their own hands. When this intent was clear, each of the Persians raised a jeweled scepter and spoke 3 commanding words. Instantly, the angry voices of the Hindus were hushed, and they seemed to be gesturing so menacingly in dumb show. Then Melchior took my arm and led me through the midst of the angry and gesturing priests, but no one looked upon us, and no one spoke. At the edge of the circle, I looked back to see the priests hurling stones viciously at nothing. When we were 100 paces away in the forest, I suddenly could hear their murderous yells of triumph and hatred, and could even hear the awful clatter of stones striking upon stones. The 3 Persians walked swiftly, leading me to safety. Though we passed many priests along the trail, not one noticed or spoke to us. When we had hurried along for many hours, my physical limbs were growing too tired to respond. Melchior took his wand from the pocket of his robe, closed his eyes in intense concentration for a moment, then touched me with its tip. The touch was light and seemingly only at the very center of my forehead. But a warm glow of golden light seemed to diffuse itself into every nerve and every cell of my being. I felt radiant, buoyant, and strong. The energy which had been drained from me had returned 1,000-fold. Tirelessly then we hurried on through the night, a day, another night, and made no stop for food or water. The swift pace did not drain me, and my silent companions seemed not to know the meaning of fatigue. What was the magic they worked? My curiosity and my mind worked with this question. They had made us invisible to the crowd of angry priests and brought me to safety. They had made us invisible to those we passed on the trail, thus leaving no way for us to be followed. They had filled my body with endless energy, even the energy of the universe. Even more, they had left something before the stones of the angry mob of priests. That satisfactorily represented my physical form. It must have been thus, for otherwise no stone would have been thrown, and there would have been a cry of pursuit. How had they worked such wondrous magic? We hurried on and joined a caravan of merchants ready to leave for Persia with rich goods for trade. Then I found that Melchior was the owner of the caravan's richest contingent, and they waited by the river for his return. We were soon placed in carry tents to rest and perhaps to be hidden while the caravan got under way and out of Hindusland. When we were safe, the caravan stopped, pitched magnificent tents. We were brought together at the big fire, and I had an opportunity to thank them for saving my life. Balthazar was a tall, lean man, very dark of complexion, with piercing eyes, tawny in color. Caspar was a short, broad man, much along my stature, with a broad forehead and the look of great wisdom. His eyes were dark brown, but pierced one to the soul as he looked. Melchior was big in all senses, with a barrel of a chest, a high forehead over wide-set black eyes. While not as tall as Balthazar, he was much heavier. In the intensity of his manner and the fervor of his expressions, he reminded me of my beloved cousin, John, who I knew, had now retreated to the desert of Paran and was living the life of a holy hermit. Melchior was emotionally at constant explosion and had to be active. His mind, like lightning from wind-driven clouds, leaped and sparkled in all directions, seeming virtually to devour whatever it touched upon. In saving me, you used a magic, which made us invisible and changed the seeing of that violent mob. By what method could I learn that magic? There was a long silence. Then Caspar spoke, his voice so pure and resonant it was like to sweet music. Jeshua, the Nazarene. Such knowledge is available only to those who have passed through the external religion of the Zarathustrians and entered into the secret religion which is behind the outer. Then only may one be ready to be told where, how, and when he may learn such magic. In a few days I shall be 20. Are there enough days left in my life? Yes, there is much danger. Balthazar's voice was deeper, with a hint of a dialect which made every word he spoke seem most important. I have faced some dangers, I said, neither wisely nor well, but if a river must be crossed in the quest, it must be crossed. Let it be so. No other words were spoken, but as the days grew into weeks, we four grew to commune by the sweeter voice of thought. My false trial by the Brahmins had been held in the monastery of Benar, near mid-length of the holy Ganges, the confluence with Benar Creek. In the weeks that followed, we turned southward in a loop and back to the Ganges. We followed it north of westerly to Kanpur, then another 10 trading days to Jaipur. We took the rugged pathways to Lahore and bore northward across the mountains and into the Indus River Valley west of Kashmir. There we spent many days at Peshawar, a trading village on the Indus. We then turned down the Indus and followed southward. We left the river valley at the end of 20 days and I knew that my initiation into the Persian mysteries must soon come about or be denied. When at last we left the caravan, taking to foot, I knew that we were headed for the sacred cave of Bokhara. These days had not been wasted for my training. When Melchior or one of the other masters was away with the trading or loading, always one was with me. When we were on the march, Melchior spent much time with me. My instruction was continuous. It was impressed by thought and by the use of only a few well-chosen words, and it continued throughout the hours of sleep whenever they might be. Many times we traveled at night, either to escape the burning sun or to be in a trading village on a special market day, but at last we were hard upon the path toward the sacred initiation chambers of the mysteries of Mithras, son of God, born of a virgin in a lowly manger of stone. Much had I learned in the many weeks of our travel and my training, and I knew that great effort lay ahead. Yet I was not quite expecting what happened when we had left the pleasant valley for the high mountains and came suddenly upon an amazingly deep crevice. Melchior stopped facing the cleft in the mountain, 1,000 feet deep and so steep and rocky that not even moss grew on the vertical sides. Jeshuao, the Nazarene, in your initiation you will come face to face with the mighty crevice called Shinvat, which no human being can cross. How will you cross it? Without waiting for my answer, he moved ahead along the trail. I stood contemplating the question, looking into the depths of the chasm before me, my head slightly dizzy from the thought of trying to cross such physically impossible obstacles. Puzzled, I turned to follow along the trail, and I heard Balthazar laugh behind me. "It can be done," he said, fairly easily. "Look, I will show you." The rocks under my feet were not sure, so I took 3 paces to solid rock and turned. But Balthazar was not on the trail. A new kind of emotion struck me, something near to panic and confusion. But his deep laugh came from the far side of the chasm, and I looked in amazement across the space. He was walking along a trail on the other side, looking at me with a wide grin upon his lean face. "I don't think you were watching," he said gaily. "Man may miss the road to heaven by watching the rocks beneath his feet. Now watch carefully." His body seemed to vibrate and to glow, then it virtually disappeared like a flame that has been slowly blown out. I was looking at bare rock where moments before my beloved and merry friend had stood. He spoke then behind me, and I whirled to see him 20 paces above me on the trail between Melchior and me. "You see, it is fairly easy." With a merry laugh, he turned and walked briskly along the trail. I followed after my 3 Magian tutors, my heart pounding both with hope and despair. I had learned much, but there seemed so much more to learn. And much indeed there was to learn in the months ahead. There was a familiar basis between the thinking of the Persians and the Druids. They believed in common that their mysteries ran back to the very earliest times of man, but the Magians have accepted a special development made by a supposed human being called Zarathustra. The Magians worshipped in the open air, contending, as the Druids, that God was an immaterial being and could not be confined in a building created by man, and the heavens were a sublime covering for a temple for the use of their deity. The Magians put their temples on the tops of hills, and built their temples of irregular circles of stones which had not been hewn or shaped by human hand. Fire was sacred to the Magians also. Once when Balthazar's robe caught fire over the campfire, I tried to put it out. He stopped me with a command, stepped out of the robe, and left it to be consumed by the flame. "But you could have stomped it out," I cried. "Fire represents God. It must have its will in all things. In all our travels they never put fire out, allowed water to fall upon the fire, and no man ever dared spit in the direction of the flames. For the Magians, like the Druids, worshipped the sun as the representative of the Spirit of God. Earthly fire they adored as the representative of the sun. No fire could ever be put out by any means whatsoever. On the night that we camped before the massive opening of the cave at Bokhara I, was told that I must be tested on my readiness to enter the initiation into the secret Persian mysteries, and that I must satisfactorily answer all the questions asked by the 3 masters. I was wary, for though my friends were gentle in their physical manners, they were fierce in their spiritual force. I knew that while they would give me anything I wished in the physical, they would demand the most specific and spiritual answers to their probing questions. Caspar asked the first question: who is Zarathustra, and what is his importance to the Magian belief? Before I could begin to answer, I saw the silent groups of Magian priests closing in around our fire. They sat in absolute stillness all through the night, all the next day, and even through the following night. By my estimate, there were more than 900 who listened to each word of my detailed answers. Zarathustra is said to be the man who established the sacred Magian rites known in Persia, Media, and ancient Chaldea. He is said to have lived about 1,000 years ago. But this cannot be fully true. Such as Zarathustra may have been the end of a long series of inspired beings, for in the Sesetir, the oldest collection of Magian books, we are taught that there are 14 great prophets of Magianism, and Zarathustra is the 13th on that list. Who then shall be the 14th? Zarathustra must therefore have been the name given to a whole series of divinely illumined lawgivers. He may have been made one mythical and mighty figure by a composite of many historic figures, but at least he is superbly metaphysical. For his very name means many things, such as worshipper of the stars, image of secret things, fashioner of living forms from hidden fire. Of all these I like the last, for within man is the hidden fire of the divine self. He who can fashion living forms from this fire is worthy of worship indeed. Zarathustra was in the most recent physical form, born to Purushaspa and Dudova, and was the third of 5 sons. He was called Spitama, and was said to be born by immaculate conception because Purushaspa, while performing a sacred rite, drank the holy Hauma, and Dudova conceived without knowing a man. All nature rejoiced at the birth of Spitama Zarathustra, knowing that he was to become a divine being. He himself laughed at the moment of his birth, for he alone of all men saw at birth his Fravashi, his spirit form, his etheric double, and standing face to face had learned divine wisdom from it. He brought about the divine books. The Gathas contained the hymns and chants of the most ancient sages, and the Vendidad gave the story of creation, and in greatest detail showed how the priests and the people must perform the religious rites. At the birth of this divine avatar, his baby head throbbed so hard it pushed away any hand placed upon it. All the evil ones sought his destruction. A cruel Katrap, using his kingly powers, ordered that all newborn infants in the land be slain in order to destroy the infant whom prophecy foretold would destroy idolatrous worship and the priestcraft of sorcerers. But even the most crafty demons were unable to destroy the divine infant, and the Katrap Dursaroba was stricken dead by the very thought he sent forth for destruction. By 7, he was a precocious and amazingly brilliant and learned child. He was given into the keeping of the Magi and educated in the mysteries of the true religion, and at a mere 15 years of age was initiated into the true faith of the ages. At 20 years of age, strangely my age, Zarathustra went to fast and meditate in the vast Persian desert. Here he was fed by the invisible masters and lived upon a mysterious cheese which never grew old. He lived in a deep cavern on a sacred mountain, perhaps the sacred cave of Bokhara. There he was surrounded day and night by rings of flame, through which only the prophet could pass. After trials and testing, he began his ministry at the age of 30. He healed many, and in one of his miracles caused the sea to part so that his followers could pass through on dry land to escape the wrath of Katrap. It is said his first vision came at dawn on May 5th as he sat beside a beautiful river. He was commanded by celestial Vohumano, messenger of the high god, to cast aside the physical body and follow unto heaven. This Zarathustra did, and he was lifted into the presence of Ahura Mazda, eternal God, and from his lips received the eternal truths and exact doctrines which he was to teach. After 6 more such visions, he was initiated into all the divine mysteries, and was then left to face every temptation. At last he arose victorious, and after 12 years of his ministry, converted to his religion King Vishtaspa. This he did by appearing into the great court through the roof, holding a cube of fire in one hand and a scepter of cypress wood in the other. He was examined by the priests and philosophers for 3 days. And from all this questioning emerged victorious. Finally, he converted the entire country and wandered in Egypt, India, and Greece, where he performed many miracles, especially curing blindness. He was at last killed as he was performing the sacred rituals in the temple of Mushadar by a ruthless Turk. It is said that a great flame came down from the constellation of Orion and took up the mortal remains of Zarathustra and took him back to the starry heavens from which he came down to suffer and die for all mankind. I stopped and waited, and after a moment Balthazar asked softly, "Did you purposely leave out the books written by Zarathustra?" "No, there were 4 books written by the great prophet of the Magi. One was the mystery of astrology, one was on morals, one was on political obedience, and one was on spirit and God. It is said that the mystic seers know that these books are put away in a great cavern at the summit of a high peak in the inaccessible Tian Shan Mountains. The original writings are preserved on stone tablets and were secretly and mysteriously inscribed by tongues of sacred flame. At some far time, when the world of men is wise enough to live by the religion and can interpret the sacred message, the tablets will come forth and be the law of the land. Even so, it is said, these writings were in truth the law of the Medes and the Persians, which does not change." I hesitated a moment, and a tongue of blue-white flame lashed out of the priests behind me, exactly as had happened so many times with my beloved father, Joseph of Nazar. I felt the surge of joy, but knew I must rush on to fill the void of knowledge. It is said Zarathustra brought from angels the divine Gathas of the Avesta, the sacred book. Originally, they were written on 12,000 hides in a secret and sacred language of the angels, and they were bound with golden bindings. These, it is said, brought man from the time when he dealt only with narrow and literal physical codes, and it became the law of moral and spiritual development. Name the gods, define them in your own words, and explain the philosophy of the Magians of the world. It was the voice of Melchior out of the blackness of the second night of questioning, for there had been many questions in between. Let us then begin at the beginning. To the Magi, all is explained in the life of man by good thought, good deed, good word, and the sacredness of fire. While to the common man these seem limited to man's estate, in the mind of the true Magian they are but symbols of divine estate. Divine thought is the extension of life of the divine essence into all things and all life. Good deed or creative activity is symbolized by a line which extends in indefinite union with its own self, that is, a circle. Good word is found in the creation of a master god, which I shall explain. Behind the philosophy of the Magi is the proof of the good thought, the absolute extension of divine being, which becomes God in space, or the boundless circle of that which is unknown and unknowable. Yet that man may have a name by which to signify this unknown and unknowable God, this unchanged and unchanging first principle. It is called Zirwana Akurne. Out of this unmanifest, this eternally unknowable, comes the physically manifested Creator, the glorious, radiant, powerful Ahura Mazda. He is space made objective, visualized as a gigantic physical entity. It is believed that Zirwana Akurne, the unfathomable abyss, the unknowable, the thrice deepest darkness, has within itself eternally the power of turning outward and manifesting as nature, even as the thought of man turning outward becomes manifest in activity. Out of this eternally unmanifest from time to time comes magnificent Ahura Mazda, also known as the Logos, or the Word made physical or Word made flesh. But after a time he must retire into the eternally unknowable. Thus it is said that when the world is unmanifested, it is Zirwana Akurne, and when manifested, it is Ahura Mazda. If we would understand the unknowable, we must make it yet more visual for man. Ahura Mazda is therefore pictured as a trinity, a triangle blazing in the eternal darkness of the eternal. In this symbology, Ahura is wisdom, Mazda is the vehicle that carried that wisdom. When they are combined, they represent the light of knowledge manifesting before the created world. But when light manifests in darkness, it creates the combat and strife of contrast. Thus does the principle of evil arise, for eternal darkness must always seek to devour eternal light. Thus it was that Ahura Mazda, the radiant and glorious moving in space or darkness, formed the greater universe and incarnated himself into the luminous parts of the whole universe. Finally, he manifested as the sun, which the Magi call Ormuzd. When Ormuzd, the sun, as objectified light, fights with darkness to sustain light and the life of the world, both matter and spirit are brought into being. When spirit unites with matter, forms are created, but the eternal conflict, the combat of eternity, must be found in all forms, including mankind. In man, the conflict is between the higher self of light and the lower self of flesh. Ahriman, the serpent of destruction, is born of this lower, grosser, elemental, and material world. When Ahura Mazda creates, Ahriman counter-creates. When Ahura Mazda makes living things, Ahriman creates shadows or bodies into which the eternal and luminous principles of spirit are imprisoned. A trinity is formed of Ahura Mazda, Ormuzd, and Ahriman. Thus we have the trinity of man as the creator, preserver, and the destroyer. It is said that Ahura Mazda created out of his spirit nature and his substance 6 secondary beings, who combined with him make the great seven, the septenary. These are called Amesha Spentas by the Magi, but in other religions they are called such names as the 7 gods of the first dawn, Dhyana Buddhas, Elohim, world builders, and such. In all religions there are 7. These 7 gods created the world of being. They are the spectrum. They are the 7 planets. They are the ones who built the 7 heavens as well as the 7 earths, one for each of these Amisha Spentas. Ahura Mazda incarnated in the first heaven and sent out his 6 regents. He then incarnated in the lowest of the worlds and sent out 6 manifestations which created each one a continent. The Amisha Spentas, therefore, are the divine keepers of the earth, lords of time, and lords of the divisions of space. But Ahriman sent out a shadow each time Ahura Mazda sent out a power. Thus were created 6 demons to act as absorbers or adversaries of the 6 godly principles. Thus 7 deadly sins were issued forth to oppose the 7 cardinal virtues. The Amisha Spentas, or attributes of Ahura Mazda, are these: first, Vohimana, good thought, sometimes said to be kindliness. Second, Asha, that is to say right or divine perfection. Third, Spenta Armeti, piety or divine harmony. Fourth, Harvatat, or salvation by divine grace. Fifth, Amaritat, wisdom which brings reality, wisdom which brings immortality. Sixth, Saithra, magnificent sovereignty. Though not named as one of the original, there is a 7th mighty one, the mediator god Sarash, who is divine obedience, a spirit messenger. Sarash, son of Ahura Mazda, is the messenger between man and God, the Messiah, the Savior of the world. He guided the learning of the avatar Zarathustra. Thus was formed a new trinity, Ahura Mazda, manifesting Logos first. principle of the new triumvirate, which is a creating triad of power, Sarosh, the Messiah, the Word made flesh, the mouth-born son of the breath of the first principle of creation, who is also the second Logos within this trinity of creation, and Zarathustra, into whom the Word made flesh is incarnated, upon whom the Word of God, the Messiah, Sarosh, descends, thus making fleshly man into the perfect image of God. Man was created out of the celestial virgin in the original 6 days of creation. The world is periodically created and lasts 12,000 years. At the end of each great period of time, the deluge comes, and Ahura Mazda draws all things back into primitive nature, into unthought, thought, into inactive deed, into unmanifested word. There it sleeps and floats in the eternal abyss, serving as the base of the resting Amisha Spentus, for the universe is then absorbed back into eternal darkness, Zirawana Akarne. When they manifest, the 7 Amisha Spentas incarnate in man. This they do as 7 mystic bodies, as 7 master organs, as 7 ever-enduring principles. How long shall the combat of good and evil last? Until truth shall be established in all things for all time. Though mankind grow very great in wisdom, still shall there be combat until truth comes to abide. Wisdom is the mysterious fire within the thought of man, symbolized by the flame on the Zarathustrian altar, ever kept alight. Truth as a living flame consumes all lower elements, like fire set free upon wood and material things. When at last truth reigns as free as fire, the lower elements will be consumed, and the work of Ahriman will be eternally destroyed. I stopped at last, after 3 days of constant mental effort, and allowed myself a fleeting thought that there had been signs of pride and approval on the faces of Melchior, Caspar, and Balthazar. But my feeling of elation was short-lived and broken by the harsh laugh and raucous voice I knew too well. Skakis called from somewhere in that vast crowd about the celestial virgin. Tell us about the virgin of the world. I was startled, nay, verily stunned, for I knew nothing about this symbol which had passed so easily in my learning and had been accepted without question and without probing. After a long pause, I said wearily, I know nothing really about the celestial virgin of the world. There was a murmur of agreement from 1,000 throats. There was a look of annoyance upon each of the faces I could see, but the snarling voice cut back across them all and struck my inner responses to a crippled resonance, like a rude hand upon a half-finished harp. Why not? You devoured her with your eyes from the deck of the Britannin as you sailed into the River Brue. Why don't you know all about her? Those nagging questions left me hopeless, shivering with inner confusion and frustration, though the Persian sun seared me with heat. But Melchior came toward me as if he had not heard the words of Skakkus, the hateful words that probed into my dreams of the golden girl. You have passed your 3-day test, Jeshuau, the Nazar Essene. Now it is your turn to be tried and sorely tempted in the desert. As was every great candidate before you, you will go for 80 days into the desert, there to face 50 temptations irresistible to man. If you return victorious, you may then enter the sacred cave of Bokhara to undergo the trials of our mysteries. Give me your cloak, your bundle, and all your belongings. Speak not a word, for these 80 days must be passed in absolute silence while you search for the meaning of being to the limits of time. Turn now, go forth. If God wills, you shall find water and food. If God wills it not, no man will succor you. I turned and stumbled blindly into the desert hills of that wild place. My confusion was not over the possibility of living those 80 days, but over how Skakkus of all people happened to be here and came to know my innermost secret. In a short while, I was crouched against the trunk of a juniper in sick despair, and I wept. As I wept, I reviewed my life and its wasted moments, its bitter, cruel moments. For all my struggles and all my trials, was I nearer to the truth? Was indeed my mother right when she insisted that I was not the son of the flesh of Joseph? In truth, I did not know the answer. What was the third manner of virgin birth? In truth, I did not know. What was the meaning of the useless stones in Kergar? In truth, I did not know. Why could I heal the dead of the king cobra one time and fail another? In truth, I did not know. Why had I given up the master's jewel of the Nazar Essenes? Why had the master's sword of the Druids been taken from me by that Skakkus? Why did he hold so much of my rights, and why did he hound me around the world? Why had I been so cruelly treated on the ship with my uncle's tacit permission? In truth, I did not know. Why had I been brought before a mock trial of berserk monks wanting only my death? In truth, I did not know. What had been the meaning of the Hierophant who burst the form of Sita and produced his own image? What indeed? In truth, I did not know. In a most perverse turnabout of emotion, I suddenly didn't care. I hated the things I had wanted. I hated the wasted time. I did not even care to learn how man crossed the impassable crevice. I wanted only the animal pleasures, the physical things of life. I became cunning and crafty. With the overbright cunning of a lion, I followed a valley until I came upon a spring gushing from the lip of a cave. I lighted a dry stick with a friction stone and made a fire, and used a taper to explore the shallow cave. I chose my spot, and using sharp stones cut saplings to form a crib, which I filled with green twigs from the pinyon trees. This would serve as my bed and as my warming cover. I then found a nearby grove of breadfruit cacti and a cluster of desert honey trees which, in the early morning before the sun dries the dew, put forth a rich, sweet sap to protect their slender branches from the damage of moisture. Close by, down the hillside, was a growth of hollowberry, so called because the kernel in the dried pod rattles in a wind like a hollow shell, but the green pod and the dried kernel are both good to eat and nourishing. Before sundown, I had taken care of my physical necessities and had broken and carried into my cave enough wood to burn night and day for a full month. Then I sat down to enjoy my physical ease and burst into tears. How soon the physical was satiated and complete, but oh, how long did the spiritual make claim upon my heart, my mind, my life? How soon the physical was satiated and complete, but oh, how long did the spiritual make claim upon my heart, my mind, my life? Bitterly I wept, until I fell asleep in the spicy fragrance of my leafy bed and dreamed of the golden girl. But even my dreams, my precious moments with her, were now turned about. I dreamed that I was ill unto my very death, with a fever that raged in my blood. She came to me, tended me, and gave me foods in the warm healing of her love. When I waked, she was gone. Perhaps she had never been there yet. Much of the wood was gone. The green leaves upon which I had lain down were turning sere and yellow, as if with age. How long had I been ill? Had the golden girl in truth been there? Even this I did not know. For many days I sat in the sun as much as I could, and ate and ate and ate. During those days I was a mental nothing, a damp rag fallen upon the earth. Slowly my strength came back, and the sounds of birds were sweet rather than annoying. At this thought I sat upright with a sudden mental clarity. The songs of birds had not changed, only my reaction to those songs. Yet they seemed to change from annoying, discordant sounds to sweet concord and harmony. Upon this I pondered and turned slowly back to my burning zeal for the knowledge, which was to come from initiation into the Persian mysteries. I meditated much on the events of my life and upon God the Eternal. I was surprised when one came to summon me back to Bokhara. From the seeming short time before he came, 34 days, I concluded that I must have been in a fever for 46 days. 46 days of illness for one who could heal others? 46 days. Why? In truth, why any illness at all? Should not the healer heal himself before the illness? Without a word, I followed my guide down from the cave, for silence was imposed upon me until I had passed the initiation at Bokhara. Melchior, Caspar, and Balthazar met me at the lip of the giant circular cave and caused me to be bathed in water, fire, honey, and then water again. I was clothed in a simple white robe. The sandals were taken from my feet, for this place was holy and not to be trod by feet shod in skin. When ready, the flutes and drums picked up a cadenced air, and we moved as a procession into the sacred cave of Bokhara. Bokhara, such a delightful feast of power and beauty to desert-weary eyes. The cave was an enormous circle and represented the universe as being supported on three great pillars which were named eternity, fecundity, and authority. The entire underground paradise was gold-covered and encrusted with gems so marvelous that even my guides stopped in awe. Brilliant lights bounced a million beams from the sparkling gems and bathed the marble fountain at the center with a changing rainbow of colors. In the very center of the keystoned arch of the dome-like roof was a gem so large and beautiful that it hurt the eyes to look upon it. This was the symbol of the sun, and it shone almost as brightly. Around this center, the heavenly planets were shown in gold against a background of Empyrean blue. Upon this colorful expanse, the entire circle of the zodiac was outlined in embossing gold, and I noted that the signs of Leo and Taurus were dominant, while the sun and moon stood out even above them. Around this starry heaven, organized for the knowledge of man, was a decoration made of symbols representing every known element and principle in nature. The procession disbanded into the cavern, leaving me standing at the top of the steps with Melchior. He moved inward, and I started down the steps, but was received on the point of a sword penetrating the skin of my chest on the left side. I looked down in surprise to see blood seeping from around the sharp blade. A voice commanded, "Stop here and wait a time with goodly patience. No one may pass who is not possessed of virtue which can resist the allurements of the world." Melchior, king of the fabulous mountains, am I speak in behalf of this candidate and vouchsafe for him such virtue. Stay, wait yet a time. No one may pass here who has not capacity and will to devote himself to the study of true philosophy. Balthazar, king of the serpents, am I speak in behalf of this candidate, and vouchsafe for him such dedication to truth and philosophy. Stay, wait yet a time. No one may pass here who does not live with heart, mind, and soul fixed upon the supreme deity and his supernal. works in unmixed and continuous contemplation. Casper, King of Initiates of the Eagle, am I. I speak in behalf of this candidate, and vouchsafe for him such continuing adoration of God. Stay, wait yet a time and a time, for such a one must perforce be armed with an enchanted armor through which nothing of any kind whatsoever can pierce. If he is as you have vouchsafed, he is impregnable, and this sword cannot touch him, pain him, or make him bleed. Therefore the test shall be this: if one drop of blood falls upon these gleaming marble steps, he shall be refused, and you three driven from this sacred place where lie was never before spoken without punishment. One after another the solemn voices repeated 3 times, He is as we have Ruffin-Feduin is armored in, impregnable armor, he cannot bleed. No wound will show, no blood will fall. Withdraw your sword. Each time the words were said, I looked down upon the blade penetrating my skin and flesh. I could feel it grating against my ribs over my beating heart. But I felt myself being raised up by the sound of the words echoing in the vaulted cave, and seeming to repeat the same message of my impregnability 1,000 times. Suddenly the sword was withdrawn, and I looked down into the slit in the flesh which was bubbling with blood. But even as I looked, I felt the power of my own mind commanding the cut to heal and the blood to be absorbed. I watched the healing take place. As I raised my eyes, I saw the sudden withdrawal of the familiar blue-white flames into the heads of the 3 Persian masters. I wondered if it was my healing skill or their master's power which had healed my bleeding chest. When the Hierophants were convinced that the instant healing had been accomplished, a glad song arose, and I was borne forward by happy priests and carried with joyful singing 7 times around the cave. Then I was again stripped and bathed in water, fire, honey, and then water, and dressed for fighting and danger. One approached in the dress of a simorg, a bird like unto an eagle by the size of 30 such birds. The simorg, I was told in song and mime, had lived several ages before Adam, and had seen all the many different species of beings that had inhabited the world since before the creation of man. The simorg reigned as the queen on Kaf, which I knew meant the heights of being which turned physical things into spiritual essences. Led by this queen of speech everlasting, I was presented with talismans to protect me from the forthcoming encounters with those hideous monsters which would seek to stop my progress to spiritual perfection. These included the seal of the monarch of the world, which gave to its possessor command of all elementals, demons, and everything which was created, and I knew it was the symbol of that gift which made me like unto the sun, from which all such creatures were emanated. Another talisman was the cyper, a buckler which protected me as a shield against all material things. Also the flaming sword, the sword of God, called Tai Atish, the symbol of unquenchable power and unconquerable soul. Thus prepared against all enchantments and armed against all possible evils, I moved into the underground caverns and went through 7 stages of initiation, each designed to raise my spirit self out of my physical self. I fought my way through the howling beasts which came upon me from all directions, inflicting grievous bites and scratches. The silent guide took me through the center of howling wolves and roaring lions, and I was set upon by a pack of wild and hungry dogs. These I knew represented the beasts of the flesh which had to be shaken loose or destroyed. We raced into blackness, and the simorg guide instructed me that I must now take the part of Tamuras, an ancient Persian king who threw the weight of his combat on the side of good in the eternal battle with evil. We battled side by side toward our goal, and at last arrived at the symbol of the mountain Kaf and released from captivity Peri, Mirjan, which represented the spirit of man, but the spirit set free of the physical body. With all the hurry and the continuous battle, I was soon exhausted, but the pace did not slacken. After hours of strenuous effort, in which I saw clearly that I was the symbol of Mithra, son of God, born of virgin, mediator between man and God, savior of mankind, I was Mithra, secret god of the Persians, and I was expected to have all the powers he might have. After A long, difficult passage through one of the vaults, we came to a fountain bathed in light and sat to rest. When we had rested a while, I heard the sound of footsteps, and Melchior, Balthazar, and Caspar came toward us, dressed in wondrous robes and smiling. They spoke words of cheer and success, and Caspar took from his neck the jewel of the master of Persia and placed it around my neck. I felt an inner rush of sheer joy. I looked into the eyes of Melchior, and he was not smiling. There was something about him that reminded me of Scacus. He took from his pouch an enormous and deadly king cobra, opened my tunic, and tossed the serpent into my bosom. Shock of terror tore through each cell of my being. I could not breathe, I could not move, I could not think. My heart was squeezed until it seemed to move to the center of my chest, then to strike up along my spine and crash into my head with a shower of blue-white light. I felt the sudden blow on the back of my head which I had felt once before. At that time, love, joy, and adoration had held me spellbound to beauty. Now fear and confusion and horror held me bound to terror, yet the effect was the same. Suddenly I was above the fountain as well as seated on its step, and I could see myself. Amazement centered upon amazement, for I saw not one of my radiant selves, but two. I was conscious of having vision from 3 different places at one time. So great was my amazement that I forgot my terror, forgot my fear, and merely marveled at this wondrous thing. Here was a glory ever greater, here was an event ever sweeter, here was an experience ever more spiritual. And I did not want to let the moment go. I felt the king cobra crawling across my bosom toward the shoulder, and saw from 3 directions his hooded head weaving before my very eyes. I did not care. For such an experience as this, let death wait, and the exchange was worth it all. Out of my fear and stress, I suddenly knew. Again, the same universal love, the overwhelming knowledge that I was serpent and serpent was I, that I was God and God was I. I felt the bliss of all perfection, even as the fanged head wove its pattern a scant 3 inches before my physical eyes. I joyed in the moment, held it tight against time, wincing not from danger but glowing with love even for the death before my eyes. Slowly the cobra settled back into my bosom, calmed by the thoughts of love. I watched from 2 other views as my hands sought him, lifted him out of the confining cloth, and gently set his coiled body on top of my physical head. After a few minutes, the cobra crawled from my head to my shoulder and then across to the marble fountain. I knew in that moment a strange sense of loss tearing at my soul and flesh and leaving me tearful. At that moment, the doors to another vault opened, and the 2 spirit bodies tumbled back into my physical form. I was urged to rise and hurry on, and again entered into a turmoil of strain and battle. We at last had conquered all our foes, and were let into the beautiful chamber known as the Sacred Grotto, or as Elysium, the place of peace. Across the grotto was the Archimagus, and he beckoned to us. We watched as the show of the Bridge of Sighs across Chinvat, the eternal chasm, was made before us. Those who had been good were able to cross the swaying bridge, but those who had been bad were shown to have been caused to fall into the vast abyss and the horrors of an eternal hell. When this mime was over, the slender bridge was withdrawn, and the stone door behind us closed. We stood upon the brink of an abyss deep, enough no man could climb out, and wide enough that no man could vault across. Yet the Archimagus beckoned us onward. It was our signal to cross the chasm or die upon the narrow ledge. Was our situation not like that of the spirit within the physical body? Did it not have to cross the mighty abyss from the material to the spiritual, vault the mighty gap, or die in the confines of the body? The Simorg, my guide, whispered to me, as the radiant man is born within the flesh man, so the physical man may be born upon the spirit man. Now you know how to cross this chasm. With that, he spread powerful wings, and a moment later was on the other side of the chasm, leaving me alone. Even as I watched, aids were enough no man could climb out, and wide enough that no man could vault across. Yet the Archimagus beckoned us onward. It was our signal to cross the chasm or die upon the narrow ledge. Was our situation not like that of the spirit within the physical body? Did it not have to cross the mighty abyss from the material to the spiritual, vault the mighty gap, or die in the confines of the body? The Simorg, my guide, whispered to me, as the radiant man is born within the flesh man, so the physical man may be born upon the spirit man. Now you know how to cross this chasm. With that, he spread powerful wings, and a moment later was on the other side of the chasm. About him, and he was helped out of his weighty costume. Then I saw Skakkus and heard his raucous laughter as he kicked the costume and stepped away toward the entrance of the cave. What a benumbing doubt assailed me. Could his advice be right? Had he not hounded me out of Britannin? Had he not jested of my most inward-kept secret? Yet had he not guided me safely through all the combats and the packs of howling dogs? I made my mind stand still, made my heart squeeze over, and willed the ramrod of light up my spine to crash through my brain. The blow on the skull was gentle, but the two radiant bodies floated over the abyss. I willed one to the other side and one to my side. I willed them to cause me to cross the chasm with this preparation. I stepped from the edge of the ledge into the nothingness of the abyss. I did not fall, but I wobbled drunkenly as I took the 23 paces to the other lip of the chasm. Then, exhausted, I sank upon the stones, weeping in exultation and in supreme joy. There broke out around me such paeans of joy, such songs of triumph, that the whole world seemed to be caroling my success. From somewhere, either within the recesses of the cave or out of the depths of my heart's sweet memory, I heard the voice of my Father saying, "This is my spirit-begotten Son. In him I am well pleased." The Archimagus came toward me, his arms outstretched, glowing with his happiness. My son, you deserve to become the eternal symbol of Mithra, friend, companion, spirit self of man. Come, anoint his sore and weary limbs with oils and sacred perfumes, and with the sacred oil of Ban. Henceforth and forevermore he shall bear the title, the Anointed One. Even as they were anointing my gladdened flesh with the sacred oil of Ban, he stopped by my side and said, "Jeshua, the Anointed One, hear the last great secret of the Persian mysteries, the last great enigma of the world. Hear and mark you well these words that have been spoken exactly as you hear them now by men who lived 10,000 years ago. In a time there shall appear upon this earth a great prophet, a seer, an avatar of God himself. He shall be the son of a virgin undefiled, who has never known a man. The birth of this anointed one shall be proclaimed by a new and brilliant star traveling through the heavens and shining with the brightness of a small sun at midday." Look you well, and keep yourself prepared to travel, for this may happen in your day. If you follow this supernatural star to where it hovers in the sky, you shall find upon earth a newborn babe. To this babe I command you offer richest gifts of frankincense, gold, and subtile myrrh. This child, grown to manhood, shall be the Savior of the world. I took each sacred word into the very cells of my heart and the tissue of my mind, that I might ponder upon it long in the strange days to come.